I used to live in China. I went to China. Back before I moved to the US. I was 12 when this happened in China. And my friend used to live in those apartments that looked like high-rise, but were a little bit smaller. Anyways, in order for us to go to his apartment, we had to either take the stairs or walk up 10 stories, or take the elevator. One day I had a sleepover at his place, and we went to get the new Pokemon movie. The one with Lattice and Latios, I think I pronounced that right, at like 6 in the evening. The store was like 2 blocks away, and he talked about how creepy the apartments he lived at are because very few people live there. I swear, I've only seen like 3 other people in those apartments, and I was there like all the time. Anyways, on the way back, it started to rain pretty heavily. We ran to his apartment and took the elevator. The elevator creaked and moaned on the way up and suddenly stopped. The lights in the elevator went out and it was pitch black and silent. The only things we could hear was the muffled sound of rain and thunder. We, being kids, started to panic, scream and cry. We were there for about 2 minutes when we heard a loud thud on top of the elevator. Then we heard light footsteps walking on the elevator. We got quiet and looked up at the vent facing upwards in the elevator. The vent had holes in it so that you could see out the top of the elevator towards the long tunnel of the building. Our eyes had gotten used to the dark so we could make out a few objects. The footsteps stopped and it was dead quiet again. My friend nudged me and pointed up towards the vent. What I saw was probably the scariest thing I've ever seen, and I am 20. I have never been this scared in my life. I looked up and could make out a face looking down through the vents. It looked like an ape, like a really, really human-like ape with human facial features, if that makes sense. It was staring straight down at us. I don't think if it was our imagination distorting a face of a monkey or an actual demon-looking thing, but it literally made me freeze in fear. I'll try to draw a picture and post it. But anyways, we started screaming. I will admit I pissed myself. It still gave me the chills thinking about it. I started banging on the elevator roof. I didn't scream or anything, just made noises by banging on the roof. And then it took off and we could hear the footsteps run to the side of the elevator roof. Then the power came back on and the elevator started to move again. We never took that elevator again. It seriously traumatized us.
Right.
Oh, go to the picture.
Weird. Yeah, there is a picture. I'll put this in the description if people want to see it.
Control and click. That's amazing.
That would be messed up if you saw that.
Yeah, in real life.
What the hell is it?
It looks kind of like a monkey.
It's weird, that.
Yeah.
I'll put that in the description if anyone wants to.
He likes saying like, doesn't he?
Yeah.
I was like really scared, and I was like really thinking myself.
Okay.
And it was like up there.
I lived in a bizarre little house as a child. It was incredibly tall and thin, like an attached house, except freestanding with three floors, a basement and an attic. It was full of quirks, such as 2 fully functioning fireplaces, a shower stall in the centre of the basement, and a backyard so small that you could not take 5 paces without hitting a fence, and an old tiny rope-pulled dumbwaiter that led from the kitchen to my bedroom. I loved that weird little place, but unfortunately it was incredibly old, and half of its charm was in the fact that it seemed to have been designed by an inarticulate conclave of lunatics, and eventually the repair cost exceeded with what my parents were willing to sink into it, and we had to move. Preparing for the move was a chore. I packed most of my stuff myself. I'd taken to throwing stuff down the dumbwaiter and shoving all my clothes so thickly in my closet that they became a single solid brick of fabric. While clearing the closet out, in fact, I came across a feature I had noticed before, an attic entrance into the roof. Being an adventurous kid, I opened it. I
I opened
her up, stood at the clothes brick, and began my first last exploration into the topmost part of our weird little house. The first thing I noticed was that it wasn't dark as it should have been. The place was strung with old red Christmas lights which still burned with leftover incandescence. A dozen little cracks with holes peeped down all the bedrooms below. The second thing I noticed was that the place was set up for habitation. The insulation was plasticed.
I don't know. I think it means plastered, like
Plastered.
plaster on a wall.
Plastered away. There was an old gurney pile with sleeping bags and sheets, and a rusted mint green refrigerator, which still worked when I tested it. The third thing was the bones. There was a lot of bones. I was a kid at the time and I had a limited understanding of anatomy, but there was bones of all types, heaped into serious piles around the centre of the attic. Small, large, clean and white, from every unimaginable sort of creature. Haphazardly stacked in a dozen osseous clumps. Two of them were blackened, as if they had tried to be burned, as if someone had tried to burn them, and the walls nearest those blackened piles were scrawled in dark bone charm messages. Most they were just smears, but the word sorry appeared more than once. That room had been sitting over my head for 8 years while I slept.
That's almost as if it's like
that's a hobo.
Someone living in your house and you didn't know it. Oh, that would be nice.
Stowaway.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, now this one's a really weird one. This is actually probably the scariest to me.
God, I can't read stuff very well with rings.
It's called My Encounter with the Two Black-Eyed Children.
Oh shit, it's horrible.
Bit racist.
In 2007, I briefly separated from my husband. He had serious drug issues and I got tired of the stress and lying. A friend of mine was moving to Wisconsin. He offered to help me get out of Florida. I had 3 teenage kids who were also ready to start a new life, so I took him up on his offer. I had a small car and signed it over to my husband because I couldn't get it to Green Bay. We left in mid-August and arrived in Green Bay 17 hours later. My friend had rented a home for us and we settled in. It was in a perfect neighbourhood. We couldn't be happier. One day in September, my kids went to a park that was at the end of the street. I was home alone, just enjoying my new life. I had the front door open and the storm door closed and locked. Then there was a knock at the door. As I turned from the kitchen and took a step towards the door, the strongest feeling of doom overcame me. I was filled with terror. I stopped for a moment in my tracks. Another knock came from the door and I found myself suddenly standing in front of it, standing on the top step where the 2 boys, maybe 12, 13 years old. The terror inside me was so strong that I wanted to vomit. I was shaking when I began to speak, but one of the boys spoke first. "Please, miss, can you let us in? We need to use your phone." The fear was palpable, but I answered, "Don't you guys have a phone?" They both turned to each other, not saying a word. Then the boy spoke, changing the question matter. "Please, miss, my brother needs to use your bathroom. We won't hurt you. You don't have to worry. Please give us permission to come in." I said, "No, I don't think so. There's a gas station on the next corner." The boy's head tilted upwards, and his eyes were just 2 deep, dark pools, soulless. The other boy also looked at me. "Miss, we need to come in, now. Let us in." I said no. I slammed the door shut and locked the knob, the chain, and the deadbolt. I was shaking like I had been in a very cold room. I looked out the peephole, and they were both looking at the door. Then one boy was saying, "Please let us in. We are cold." "How can they be cold? It's 80 degrees outside." I yelled through the door, "Go away, I'm going to call the police." I looked out, and they stood there. I only stepped off the stairs when my boys came walking up the sidewalk. I watched as the boys got to the end of the walkway and turned in the opposite direction of which my boys were coming. They ran up to the door and were just as surprised to find it locked. I carefully unlocked it and hurried them in and locked it behind them. They asked me who the kids were, and I told them that they were just kids selling candy for their schools. After that day, I tried to stay aware of what was around me. All I know is that what I experienced was something out of a movie. It traumatized me, and I slept with the lights on. I didn't tell my kids, until my youngest, a girl, had graduated high school. My oldest son said that the moment they had stepped onto the sidewalk where our house was, he felt a weird feeling in the pit of his stomach. He also admitted that he had seen both of them down on the walking trail, but never since. Every time I think of it, I get sick. There you go. I think that's just really,
Why do
really
people
bad.
publish these things?
There's all kinds of websites out there for reporting things
But
and
most
people
of this is
comment.
fake.
It's probably just some
What
fat man
is it?
sat in his room.
That man just writing.
That's what you want to believe, because you don't want to.
I'd rather
It's
believe
real.
that than not think that it's all real.
So those are all the ones I got off the internet. I didn't want to do loads, but those are just some that I think are pretty interesting. There's one more thing I want to say. Now this isn't one I found off the internet. This is a story that my aunt, I think my aunt told me. Now it wasn't very long ago, but I can't really remember it. I only heard it once and I wasn't properly listening, but I think it's worth a mention. Now this isn't found off the internet, this is from someone, a relative I know, so I'm fairly sure it's not made up. And I don't really think this person would make stuff up. So once again, I only listened to the story once, so I haven't got all the details, but I'll tell you what I remember. My aunt, when she was a young girl, had some friends and they were having a sleepover somewhere. Alright? And I can't remember how old they were, but I knew they were young. Anyway, something happened and they decided to make a Ouija board and do it just for like a thrill or an excitement or something.
It's a Ouija board.
It's one of those boards where it has loads of letters and numbers on and words, and then you have like a glass or an object, and all of you put your fingers on the glass or the object, and you're supposed to call out to spirits, and they will use your energy to move the object and spell out words and say messages and things. You see it all the time in horror movies and things. There's actually a movie coming out called Ouija.
Ouija.
So people do it for thrills and to see if they get anything. Anyway, I can't remember exactly what happened, but I think they weren't getting anything. Nothing was happening until suddenly it started moving, and they all looked at each other and knew that no one was pushing it. It was because they only had the fingers on, they couldn't really push it, and they'd feel. And they said something like it was moving, and they could feel it moving. They feel a force where the force was almost on the bottom of the glass. It wasn't like where they were touching it, and so they knew that it wasn't each other. And so something was moving. And it was almost that force where it was too powerful. You could know it wasn't someone pushing it. Or something like that, anyway. But it spelled out a word. Now, I can't remember whether it was a name or something, but it's just one word. And nobody knew what it was. Right, I think it was a name, I can't remember. Except for one of the girls who was there at the sleepover. I can't remember exactly what happened, but she just got up and left the sleepover and just went home. And after that, I don't think they were friends anymore, and they never sort of saw each other again. To this day, my aunt doesn't know what that word means. All she knows is that word has something serious to do with that girl. Something that happened in the past or something, and what she saw was something so disturbing she just didn't want to have anything to do with it again, so they just didn't become friends anymore. I was scared and just left like that.
And that's quite
Once again, I heard that from a relative. That's not on line or anything. And I would trust her, so it's pretty messed up. That sort of stuff is
wow.
real. So there you go.
Well, you're
viewers.
freaked out of that, aren't you?
It's weird, man. It's
Everything's
not off the internet.
It's all
So you
weird.
know, like someone hasn't just made it up. So anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video today. Up All Night with the Sollycast 2014. We've got so much more content coming to you. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe and carry on watching for more videos uploaded soon. See you later.
Bye.